Hello. Welcome to Outlaw Redemption, the podcast, a Western folk rock opera. I'm your host, Bill Wardlow. My co-host, RPG, Ronald Allen Cordy.
Yep. Glad to be back here in Manhound Sound Studios.
Yep.
I can't tell you how much I enjoyed this project, Bill. I have to reiterate that to anybody that cares to hear this. I thought that this was such a great project to do with you. I think that you're more than just an engineer. You're very good at your engineering stuff, but I think you're really good at being an artist and understanding exactly what we're after, the production side of things, and following. It's just a good thing. There's the things that we did and that you and I are on the same page about, and we'll get to that in a second. Let's get to our story. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. So we just left this. We had this one little bright spot in this story so far where this kid.
Things were looking up.
Yeah, the things were looking up. I mean, this kid said it ain't going to be long and things are going my way. And of course, the years go by and he grows up and he's going to church and he meets this little girl in church, his best friend. They grow up and love blossoms. But, you know, life and the world just don't let things happen sometimes. There's always somebody out there that's jealous of someone else, you know.
And things take a pretty dark turn here.
Yeah, well, they do take a very dark turn. And that's because back to the barren son, very entitled. Got a couple of minions running around trying to get his scraps to give him a little muscle on his back, you know. It's not that his dad's a great man. It's just that this son is the product of not a very nice man who lets his son run over everything, his heir.
Yeah.
And he's running around town. But the one thing you can't, and of course, just like anything else, if you can have everything, the one thing you want is the thing you can't have. And if you can't have it, you're going to try to ruin it for everyone else, so they can't have something you can't have. That's kind of the nature of these types of folks I've seen in my life. If I can't have it, I'd like to see it all burned down.
Right.
And so in this particular part of the story, we've got this Hezekiah and Prairie Flower. And you can just imagine them walking around town, sitting together at church, singing the songs, having picnics. And then you got the one guy that keeps making advances and gets spurned by a very polite and nice girl because that's who she is. And knowing that this son of a whore, son of a criminal, an outlaw son, having something I should be having because my daddy owns the town. I mean, I've ran into you know who my daddy is? You know what my daddy has? You know, one of those.
Yeah.
If you get in our way, we'll run you over kind of people. And then you have something, but, you know, sometimes those guys win and sometimes they don't. And this particular one, he could not stand the fact that he could not have the thing that he wanted. And the other part of that I really wanted to tell in this story was this thing about labels. I mentioned it a couple times. The song that we're about to get into is Like Father, Like Son. You know, so many times people judge you. My brother was a hellion. I love my brother. He's in heaven now, but he was hard. He was pretty hardcore in school, man. He was a ruffian and a hooligan and all those good things. And I remember when I get into a class and they would go down the line and put you in your seats. And my last name's Cordy. So obviously in a small town, you're in the front row if you're a C.
Yeah.
More than likely. And so I would already be in the front row due to my name. But then the eye rolls, the sighs that would come out when they said, "Are you related to David?" Because my brother loved life. He loved doing what he wanted to do, and school wasn't it. He loved playing ball, riding on his bike, and just crazy stuff. You know, my brother was just that guy. But he wouldn't take crap from anybody.
Yeah.
he was pretty tough.
So
Maybe
they were
a bit
prepared
of a
for you when you come.
Yeah, so it's like the eye rolls and the heavy sigh, and you're like, oh, gosh.
Here we go again.
Here we go again. I mean, this went on for years. Every time I go to a new grade, it'd be like, are Are you David's brother? Oh. Like, oh my God, here we go again. But then they find out that's not who I was. And my teachers were really great. And I'm pretty sure that he gave them I mean, I was no angel, but then on the other hand, I was definitely not a bad kid. And neither was my brother. He just was the way he was.
Just a little ornery.
Just ornery. He was definitely ornery. That was exactly the best word. And when if it came to fighting, he wasn't playing.
Right.
Yeah, that I will say that was serious with him. But
so with that, you get labeled, though.
yeah, you get these labels on you, man, and people say you're this or you're that, and it may not even be anything you done, but it could be something you done once, but that's who you become.
Yeah.
This one action defines who you are, or this opinion of some people define who you are. And, you know, there are times, I think sometimes you call somebody a bad person long enough, they might just decide, I'll show you what a bad person is.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of that in me myself. I've got a little ornery in me too, just to say. I mean, you know, I'm a bit of an outlaw that had to find redemption himself. And, yeah, man, I used to think about that a lot. Like, you think that's bad? I will show you bad, because my bad is way more wicked than anything that you can think of. Because that's, you know, there's a lot of resentment and things and a lot of deep harbored anger going on, you know, about things that weren't fair. Well, I get fired up over that more than anything in the world. And I know I have a saying, I said, life ain't fair. The fair's in July and you ain't got no money, so you don't get to go. That's fair as far as, you know, that's what fair is really like.
Right.
But I do have this, I grew up reading books about knights and things like that, man, this chivalrous stuff. And right is right and wrong is wrong. And people should look out after those. You know, I have all these conceptions that were just built into me. I mean, Marshal Matt Dillon was never on the wrong side. And Marshal Matt Dillon knew there was never a good way to do something that was wrong. There was never a good way of doing it and making it good by doing something. If it was wrong, it was wrong.
Right.
If it ain't fitting, it ain't fitting. That's how it is, you know. And that's the way it sticks with me. But, I mean, the world is far more gray than that. And people don't abide by that code universally.
It's true.
And we're all together in that
Not
pile.
everybody grew up watching Westerns.
Exactly. And reading books about the knights, King Arthur and his knights.
Yeah.
That stuff had a profound effect on me, too.
Yeah.
Of course, then I grew up reading books about mountain men and that, too. So I got a lot of those things in me. Yeah, so I wanted to bring that up because I see a lot of kids and the stuff that I do and have done in life, you know, and they get labeled, too. Poor kids. People that you know, the kid that smells funny because he doesn't get to take a shower once or a bath but once a week. But you don't know he lives in. So I grew up when there was still no running water in houses, or maybe just one. Matter of fact, we had an outhouse when I was a kid. I went and got my baths on Saturday night. You know, we washed up in that big wash tub that Mom heated up water in. We had to do that every day. Mom kept us clean.
Yeah.
But we had the Saturday night bath, just like that Saturday Evening Post, that Norman Rockwell, you know. And then for church on Sunday, you know, that was a staple of life for me growing up. But there were other kids. I'll never forget, there was a poor kid when I was in school. And a teacher took him, made him take a bar of soap and go take a shower. And he did it in front of everybody at lunchtime or at gym or something. I think he was a gym teacher. Did it in front of the entire class, a gymnasium full of people. And I thought that was the most horrible, cruel thing I ever seen. And this poor kid was under the spotlight. And I understand that teacher was trying to teach him with a good, firm hand about some hygiene, because he was a gym teacher and he was one of the men that was very conservative and very fist down on things, and you follow this and you do it the right way. And he completely did the right way to destroy a kid. Yeah. And I never forgot that, because I was always been aware of these things since I was very young. I was always very empathetic. And I thought to myself, man, I live in a house. I mean, if I didn't have grandparents that had a shower, You know, I mean, we did scrub up every day, but what if your parents didn't make you?
Right.
What if they didn't provide soap? Maybe that, you know, I mean, this kid was super poor. We knew some super poor kids. My grandparents and our Villers Chapel, where I grew up at, that my great five greats grandfather built this church, and my family went to it forever. And but they were always very strong about that, you know, helping, taking people up, having communal dinners, things like that. So I've always had this instilled in me of that is the right way to be. And more than that, it always felt right.
Yeah.
What I saw happen in that gym did not feel right. And I was a kid that didn't have the greatest sense, you know, didn't have an adult sense of right or wrong. And I knew intrinsically to the depth of my soul that was cruel and wrong. And it could have been, even if the intent was good, the delivery was horrible and it did damage. And this kid got labeled and he got talked about for years. You know, that kind of thing, that stuff sticks, man.
Yeah, it does, especially in school.
So here's this kid in our story, Hezekiah, who's worked in this, I mean, really, what a story. My dad gets hung. My mother dies from addiction, being a prostitute, but somehow I hammered on, worked, found a place where someone would accept me. I helped them until I became the helper, took over their responsibilities and ran this entire thing and never getting 1 ounce of credit from it from those in the power.
Right.
Like, who cares where you're at? How far have you come?
Yeah.
You know, this kid had gone light years, you know, but yet carried the label of like father, like son. Doesn't matter how good you're doing. One day you're gonna F it up.
Yeah.
And that's what this song's about, you know.
He had been pushed too far.
And then here's the sad thing.
And that anger and revenge comes boiling up out of you.
Then the generational curses.
Yeah.
You know, these things are in us. I mean, there's an old story that talks about, I was told this way, I kind of like this presentation, but there was an old Indian grandmother who was talking to her grandson, and she says, Grandmother says, grandson, there are two wolves that live inside of you. One is darkness and anger and all of these things that are bad and fighting. And then the other one is everything that's good and light. And the grandson says, well, grandmother, which one wins? And the grandmother says, well, grandson, it's the one you feed the most.
Yeah.
So I do believe that we have this yin and yang, this two sides of the coin, but we choose which one we feed. We choose which one we decide we want to be. That doesn't mean the other one doesn't exist nor rear its ugly head once in a while, but it's like keep feeding the right side. And that's what you try to do. But, you know, some things, you know, if it ain't fitting, it ain't fitting, you know. There's some lines that once they're crossed, that, you know, everybody has their limits. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong or indifferent. I'm just saying it is.
Yeah.
You can only push people so far.
Once you push someone too far, it's too late.
And we live in a world that will do that and do that and do that and then turn around and point your finger for erupting to their reaction.
Right.
You know, you've done everything horrible. You whip, beat, ridicule, push down. And when he raises his hand, you'll say, look, I told you were violent.
Right.
I knew you were all along. And I proved it because I pushed you there. But nobody's ever faulted me for pushing you there, you know. And so that's what this story's about. There's, like I said, there's a lot of commonalities and themes that I go, again, going back to what Billy Graham, there's no new sins under the sun. The old ones work just fine, and they've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
You know, just they take a different form, they take a different flavor, but they are the same ones. And this has been going on since the dawn of time, you know, and I think these things are important to remember. And I think in knowing them and becoming aware of them, then we sometimes have a choice to decide, are we going to feed, which wolf are we going to feed?
Yeah.
In ourselves. And when we recognize that behavior going on in others, we know, don't fault the one that's getting picked on that's going to retaliate. Maybe go back to the source and find out why they're pressing. And you probably get to inside of them, they have that two good wolves too. And they've had pressures put on them and they've chose a path. So, I mean, I understand hurt people. In our particular story, we could probably get into Rex's psyche.
Yeah.
Maybe he feels he has to act out because he's neglected the love that he needs. He's got things, but he has no love. He doesn't have any admiration. He's got duty and probably be getting told he ain't good enough. One day you'll have all this, son. If you've got to get tough enough, you've got to be good enough, and you're just not there. We don't know that. So as much as I don't like this character, I can concede the fact that there are probably reasons that he has decided to feed the wolf.
Right.
Maybe that's the only food he was ever given.
Yeah.
And that's the one he feeds to his own inner wolf. And so at that point, even when someone's doing you right, I try not to, even when I come to those lines, and sometimes there's lines that are crossed, I still try to find a way to not react and take. I believe in taking action. So one thing I learned in recovery, the thing that the best one of the things I learned is to pause. I don't do it perfectly all the time, but pause, because when something happens, our tendency is to react. When we react, we seem to react with emotions, with past hurts and all of that, without any consideration. It's a reaction. But when one takes time to pause, then one can decide, put it in the right category, measure the losses, measure all the things that are at risk, measure where it came from, and then we can choose to take an action, make a plan. When you take a reaction, you are controlled by your emotions. When you stop and you take action, you contemplate and take action, you're being ruled by your intelligence. And there's an old saying in recovery about I over E. Make sure you keep your intelligence over top of your emotions.
Yeah.
Don't dismiss your emotions. They're very valid. But they will cause you to react, and they will cause you to react poorly.
Almost 100%.
Almost 100% of the time. But if you take those, but with a pause and a plan, you can take those emotions and turn them into proper action.
Yeah.
Measured action, thought out action, one that takes the best course or the best one that you can navigate. And so that's where we are at in this song, and it talks about lines and how far we go.
Yeah. So this song brings Mason back in on the djembe.
Yep.
And really great beat on this song.
Yes.
We also added a tambourine in on the third. Yeah.
So yeah, I got a shout out for the tambourine because this is important. And we used tambourines on a couple of other songs, but I'm pretty certain I know this particular tambourine has its own qualities to it. If you know tambourines and instruments, they have different sounds. You can have 2 or 3 different ones that do different things. This particular one is a Marshall Tucker band. There she is. And when I say Marshall Tucker band, I'm talking the lead singer of Marshall Tucker, the original member, Doug Gray, threw this to me like a Frisbee, said, "This is for you, big man," when I was at Louisville and got to see him in concert from the 6th row. I'm a pretty big guy, as I've said before. And he said, "This one's for you, big man." He throws it like a Frisbee. And I catch it in the 6th row with one hand, and not a single soul tried to grab it. He threw it right to me. And he was singing, I'll never forget, it was after Heard It in a Love Song. And I will tell you, I was in that 6th row singing my little heart out. I just love those guys. Those guys were, and there's a lot of them, probably a lot of their influence in a couple of these songs, because I really dug that band. Everybody thinks they're Southern rock, and maybe they've got an element of that, but they've got an element of the blues. They've got an element of country, and they definitely got an element of Western. But the thing is, they got this element of jazz. And fast forward, I saw that happened in Louisville. A few years later, I actually stayed in the same hotel with them, with a couple of my friends, Chuck and Tony. I want to get a shout out to these guys. We pulled into a hotel, had no idea, and their lead guitarist comes out. And we end up meeting him, stay in the hotel. They give us we was in the green rooms, and so it was crazy. Spent the whole show with them. We had front row seats. It was nuts. But the one thing that was cool about it is I was talking to another one of their guitar players, Rick Willis, who grew up in Spartansburg. And he was talking about, I said, the one thing I always caught about you guys use a lot of jazz chords. And he cracked the biggest smile, and he said that was the Tommy Caldwell guitar method. He taught it to all us boys down, so we could all play this music.
Wow.
That's what he said. So I don't know, but there's such a, and I think that if you get into this album, you'll see a lot of that different variety. This is not country music. There are some country, there's a couple rockers, there's a couple bluesy, but it was the fact that I think that it was that we stuck to, we told a story and we stuck to what the song was saying, and didn't let the genre confine us. What's this music? What's the voice? What voice is it using?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did it was a neat little combo we did on the chapter. It was we used clarinet and cello. What a nice little combination, man. A whole lot of underneath. And then this, and as we mentioned before, the clarinet's a wooden instrument.
I just love the cello too.
Yeah. Well, Sarah did a bang-up job on everything she did, but these cello, there's something that hits you deep in your belly when that cello comes and that thing
just
hits
kind
and
of
starts
rumbles
to draw.
your inside.
Yeah, it just rumbles
it's
in
really
there.
great.
And I really did. I will say this project, I did use that little Washburn, a classical that I had, and tried to be very simple with it. I wanted to be very simple because it was the base coat of everything, if you will. And but it really recorded well, far better than I really thought it would. I really dig the sound of the classical.
It really did. Yeah. And back to the song.
The song.
Like I said, Mason laid down a heck of a beat.
Yeah.
We added the tambourine to top it off and give it a nice, right where the snare would normally be.
Heard it in the love song.
And Kendall and Tucker come in, laid their parts as with everything else.
Yeah.
And Tucker laid a great guitar part, and I don't think there was any editing. I think this was one of the takes, and it was just we kept one take. And Jake come in and laid the lap steel, and same thing. I'm fairly certain we just picked the takes that we liked, and then pushed up the faders, and it just played through and happened.
Yeah, again, Jake actually recorded. If you remember, Jake actually laid his lap steel down, and then Tucker came in, and we
later,
and we turned Jake off and didn't let it. The thing is that those guys are in the same space, and it's easy when you're playing with someone else to hold back and not do something because you think they got it covered, but you may choose to pull that up, what you did, and not what they did. And the thing is I wanted these guys, and Bill too, both of us, we wanted these guys to not limit what they heard and what they were trying to say.
Yeah.
Let us produce this thing.
And we would typically do a couple takes where they just played it the way they felt it.
Yeah.
And then we would have them do a take of just like a rhythm run.
Yeah.
So if the other one was playing, we could always pull from that and give. But this song in particular, this is probably the most stripped down song on the whole record. It's just the core band that was here for all of it.
Yeah.
And we pulled up the faders on those two, and I remember both of us just kind of gasped, like, "Oh wow!" It's like they were sitting there and playing. The whole thing's really intertwined and works so well together.
So playing off each other, and they weren't.
Yeah, it's really.
But what I find
really
to be amazing. This is one of the reasons I love music. We give them a bass line track, we give them a tune, and said, "What's this song say to you?" And they said, "This is what I hear. This is what my response is to this. This is my voice I'm adding to this." And they said everything they wanted to say with that voice. And then the other one did the same exact thing. And then you put the two together and find out their response to what we were laying down was almost identical, even though they hadn't heard each other's response.
Right. Almost identical, but also
different.
without getting in each other's way. It was just amazing that we didn't have to edit anything.
It was like braided rope.
Yeah.
It was like braiding a rope, man.
Yeah. It really come together on this song.
They go together. They just seem to go together just right. And the result of each one being pushed, intertwined with the other, is a much stronger bond or braid, like in a rope, rather than two pieces of twine on each side. And I thought that was a really great thing. I really wish you guys could see us doing these podcasts, because I promise you, I am so hand animate, it's insane. If we had a video, you could see, man, I do karate moves. I draw pictures with my hands and make frames around stuff, all that good stuff. But so you can imagine my intertwined fingers right now when I've been talking about these guys putting this together. I can't get over it. Sometimes I back this up and listen to the lead in the middle. I sometimes listen to 4 or 5 times, it's not just once or twice, like about every third time I listen to it, the whole thing.
Yeah.
I can't help it. I just cannot believe that something like that comes together, and neither one of them heard each other's response, but their responses matched perfectly together. They meshed perfectly together, and they were saying the same thing. Complimentary.
Yeah, I don't know if you could do that again if you tried.
I don't know. Man, there was so much in this project, I have to say. Sometimes the coincidences start to become so often that it's like, man, this is like, there's something else going on. I mean, I really think that the Lord helped really pull this thing together somehow. I do. Who gets 9 other musicians dedicated to a project this size, 20 different instruments, freaking great engineer and a guy that produced it. It's just waiting and dying for an opportunity to do something like this, and it all comes together just like there's something magical about it.
Once we started it was a ball rolling downhill.
It wasn't going to get stopped, was it?
No,
it was happening. I mean, it was just absolutely just like the Joe thing. I just go to an open mic to go try to get my name in a different area and introduce a few things. Introduce a few songs and, get my presence in a new town. And suddenly I got my sax player.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, I play clarinet too. And he does a lot of other things too that we just have, starting to utilize all these different aspects of musician. But in this project, he stuck to the sax. But that's just how that happened. I find it unbelievable. I was going to, I was playing with other musicians, a couple other musicians when we started this project, and as regular gigs as far as a violin player and a harmonica player. Well, both of them have their own things that they do, and one of them was on the road, and the other one was involved in her own business and her own music, and they neither one got to be on this project.
Yeah.
But because that happened, I ended up with a cello. And because without no harp, I ended up with I went with mandolin and banjo. Had an opportunity to go that direction. So I completely took directions. And we still had a harp on the table. It just got to the point that we had so many different things.
We just never needed a harp.
We just never got to it.
Yeah.
There was and it could have fit, and we could have gone. The best thing about producing music is you can go a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I still, one day, I intend to record Outlaw Redemption in another fashion. And make it very Southern rocky.
The song.
Yeah, the song itself. Because that's the way I fully intended it when I started it, but it evolved to become something more like a Night Moves or something. Bob Seger, the sax kind of part. And it fits really well in the story. It fits really well in this rock opera. So this particular song, like I said, this was pretty stripped down. We didn't have any of the other. We had the electric guitar and the lap steel did all of the accentuation work, if you will, and we hammered out between me and Mason and Bill and me on acoustic guitar and Kendall on the bass. We laid down the groove for it all, and the rhythm, and we doctored those guys up. not doctored them up. We just let them be free in their space, and it was probably, this might be my favorite song on the whole album.
Yeah.
Just because I just love that double lead.
I do like how it come out.
Yeah.
So here it is.
All right. Like Father, Like Son. Well, time marches on, and in the middle of things getting good, the old evil world has its own plans. There just always seems to be someone that wants to tear others down. Someone that wants to take everything for themselves. Greedy pricks just full of anger and jealousy and resentment and just pure meanness. Abusing their position and their privilege. They want to highlight your failings, sabotage your success, steal your dreams. Well, every man has his limits. Some lines once crossed can't easily be let go. When the meek rise, sometimes it's with a fury that consumes everything. Rise up, and the devil steals my dream. I took my burdens to the foot of the cross, where it looks like a few followed me back. Every time I feel that loss, that's when the devil